A woman stands alone in the kitchen, pouring milk into a pot. She seems so focused on what she's doing, even though it is a very simple activity. Too simple, let's admit. Why is she so focused on it? Isn't pouring milk something simple to do? The truth is that this scene seems quite normal. Too much so. Why am I talking about it here? It's even a little tedious. Or would there be something else here? Something to do with, I don't know, all this bread on the table? Looking closely like this bread looks a little odd. Hey, who knows about this thing on the floor? What is it? It's so small. Wait, is it a mini stove? It looks like a dollhouse stove. Why is that dollhouse's stove isolated in the corner? It looks like I can reveal to you a few things after all. May I get started? This painting is called The Milkmaid, one of the most famous paintings by the Dutch painter Johannes Vermeer. This is another one of Vermeer's works where he depicts a scene from everyday life. It's what he does best. But wait a minute, this scene is a little different from the everyday scenes he usually painted. In this style of painting, Vermeer usually depicted elegant, wealthy young women doing leisure activities. But not here. In The Milkmaid, you see a maid during her working hours. The Milkmaid shows a maid in a kitchen, concentrating on pouring milk into a pot. Except for the movement of the falling milk, everything around her, including her, seems completely still. Despite being a maid, the woman appears to be an impressive figure, with a somewhat low perspective, which gives her a monumental character. The sleeves of her robes are rolled up, revealing strong arms. The woman's hands are rough and brownish, signs of her hard work, yet the skin from wrist to elbow is pale. This is a difference you would not see in the skin tone and the arms of elegant and refined young women of that era. The kitchen in this scene is a compelling environment. This is thanks to Vermeer's subtlety in using perspective and light, as well as the way he arranged the objects in the scene. It is a typical Dutch kitchen of his time. But why did Vermeer paint a maid at work? Is this really just another scene from everyday life, or is it something more symbolic?
Something like this? She's just working at Starbucks, right? Share your guess in the comments.
There are different interpretations. Some see the maid as a paradigm for accuracy and virtue, as she seems to be focused meticulously on her domestic task. Others see her as a divergence from the tradition of paintings of kitchen maids, which often had suggestive references. At the time, there was a certain reputation of promiscuity towards maids and kitchen maids. However, this reputation does not correspond to the monumentality of the maid that appears in The Milkmaid, adding to the fact that she seems to be completely unaware that she's being watched. Her only focus is her work. Okay, now I will show you some interesting details of the scene. Will you be able to decipher Vermeer's intentions with this painting? Do you see the small stove standing there in the right-hand corner? It's a foot stove, very common in 17th century Dutch houses. X-ray research revealed that Vermeer had initially painted a basket full of laundry in place of the foot stove, emphasizing this woman's domestic responsibilities. The substitution, however, seems to have been necessary to enhance the painting's narrative. If this maid is someone so careful, it would be quite inattentive behavior if she were to collect all the laundry in the house, take it to the kitchen, and leave it on the floor while preparing a meal. So unprofessional. By inserting the foot stove into the scene, he makes the same reference to housework, but in a more inappropriate way. Why? You see, a woman could accidentally warm herself by running her skirts over the stove. In addition, the stove was seen as a symbol of the burning desire for love and fidelity. The idea of the symbol of love seems to be supported by the images of Cupid on the tiles behind the stove. See? So, would this be a painting about romance? Subtle promiscuity? Not really. Taking the whole set into consideration, here, the symbol makes more sense with the maid's dedication to her work. This is her love, not a romantic one. Now, the milk. It is in the clay jug that the kitchen maid carefully holds and is poured in a narrow stream into the pot. It is a realistic portrayal where you can almost hear the milk splashing inside. Incredible! But why is she pouring the milk in a particularly thoughtful way? What's the reason? The answer is found in the way Vermeer used still life in the scene. The large amount of bread on the table seems to indicate that the kitchen maid is preparing something involving bread and milk. By the way, look at the bread. It doesn't look fresh. what could you prepare with an old loaf of bread? Well, considering the type of stove depicted in the painting, which was used for long, slow cooking, she seems to be doing something that takes a long time. Maybe a bread pudding. That would explain the maid's care in pouring out the milk, since it is difficult to prepare a bread pudding if the ingredients are not properly measured and combined. Relating these elements, you now realize that Vermeer described not just an ordinary scene, but an ethical and social value. It is the precise moment when the kitchen maid is intently working with common kitchen ingredients and unusable stale bread, transforming them into a new, tasty, edible product. Her restrained behavior, her modest dress, and the way she prepares food eloquently but unobtrusively convey one of the strongest values of 17th century Holland: domestic virtue. The maid could have made a simpler recipe, such as porridge, but instead, she devotes her attention and care to preparing something more appetizing: a bread pudding. It is her virtue to her love, the housework. In a more technical analysis, Vermeer masterfully painted the various textures in this painting. The bread is rough and chunky, and in contrast, the vases and pot are beautifully glazed. The artist has managed to bring to life the effect of sunlight dancing on these objects, using small brushstrokes and dots in an almost impressionistic pointillism technique to paint the sunlit areas. The daylight shining through the window creates distinct contrasts of darkness and light in the room. The figure of the woman stands out against the white wall, especially her side in the shadow, where Vermeer emphasized her right arm, highlighting it against a dark background. He deliberately used light and shadow to strengthen the composition and to clearly position the woman in the kitchen. Vermeer further intensified this contrast by adding a thin white line to the right outline of the maid's body, which helps to subtly distinguish her from the wall. The white outline seems to make her flicker slightly. On a general note, it is in the Milkmaid that Vermeer uses the brightest color scheme among all his works. Lead tin yellow and natural ultramarine are used heavily, although their use alone cannot explain the exceptional luminosity of this work. At first glance, the wall behind the female figure appears to be completely bare. But if you look closer, you will see that Vermeer has added several details to it. There are several holes on the right side of the wall near the head of the maid, where nails have been roughly pulled out, creating irregularities in the surface. On the upper left, above the maid, a nail remains in the wall. The shadow cast by it does not correspond with the light shining through the window. This shadow suggests a much larger light source than the window at eye level. Perhaps there's a second window higher up on the wall. Vermeer had originally painted a rectangular object on the wall, but it is not known for sure. Maybe a map or a painting. However, he eventually decided to remove this object from the painting, creating an intriguing void. This void is further accentuated by replacing the laundry basket with a foot stove. This increases the sense of space in the room and focuses all the viewer's attention on the kitchen maid. One thing that has caught the attention of critics and historians is this table. Doesn't it look strange? What is this different shape? Oh no, did Vermeer get the perspective of the piece of furniture wrong? Not at all. This table is a typical 17th century Dutch table, which when opened, revealed an octagonal top. As for the identity of the maid, the model who might have posed for this painting has never been identified. Some people associate her with a maid from the Vermeer house, Tanneke Everpol, but this has never been confirmed. This painting is one of the first in which Vermeer depicts a single figure in an indoor setting, so it's a pretty simple subject, right? But the way Vermeer manages to portray something so ordinary in such a majestic way makes the painting an exceptional work. The Milkmaid has always been a well-admired painting, and this is clear from the way the painting has appeared in various auctions over the centuries. The Milkmaid has always been a well-known painting throughout its history. 20 years after Vermeer's death, it was auctioned with 20 other works by Vermeer for the sum of 175 guilders. The Milkmaid featured in several notable collections until it was bought by the Rijksmuseum in 1908, together with 39 paintings from the famous Six collection, after much public squabbling and even the intervention of Parliament. What did you think of the Milkmaid? Did you like to learn more about this beautiful painting by Vermeer? It is admirable how a painting that appears to be so simple reveals deeper meanings through its details. And that bread pudding is a great idea to reuse old bread. It made me hungry now. Make sure to give your like in this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications to stay up to date with new videos to come. See you next time!